Welcome to the Dinosaur George Podcast, a show about paleontology and other earth sciences. Dinosaur George is a public speaker, author, and TV host with 30 years of study in paleontology. He has performed live in over 4,500 events across the US and Canada. Now, here is Dinosaur George.
Oh boy, is it good to be back again. It always feels like forever between when I can record these things. And so I'm really glad to be back behind the microphone today. I've got some time to record several of these, and so that's what I plan to do. Happy 4th of July and good morning, everybody. If it's not the 4th of July when you hear this, or it's not morning, it is when I recorded it, so that's why I said it. So I hope you all are doing great. I've missed being able to do these podcasts. My summer speaking tour is finally winding down. Over the summer, I generally travel pretty much nonstop to speak at libraries and public events pretty much all over the state of Texas. And now it's kind of slowing down. August, I'm going to have a lot of downtime in August, so I'm going to be able to do a lot of interviews. Unfortunately, because my downtime is in August is one of the busiest seasons for so many paleontologists, so I don't know if I'm going to have a lot of luck being able to get a lot of interviews set up because so many of those folks are out in the field or they're busy. So anyway, August I've got a lot of downtime. I'll tell you why. It has to do with medical stuff. I was diagnosed with cancer in my right kidney, but it does not look like it's spread to any other internal organ. It looks like it's contained in the kidney. On August 9th, they go in to remove my kidney, and it doesn't look like I'm going to need radiation, doesn't look like I'm going to need chemo, so it really, really is not a big deal. It's not, medically, it's not that big of a deal. So since I'm going to be forced to take some time off in August and recover, coming into the studio is simply the best way for me to spend my time. So I hope to do a lot of these a lot of these podcasts during the month of August and get to answer a lot of your questions. Also, speaking about answering questions, something I'm adding this year to my traveling museum. See, my busy season starts about September, and that's when it really takes off. What I'm going to do with my traveling museum is I am putting together a mobile podcast recording system. So now when I go out with the traveling museum and when we're doing public events and it's open to the public, any of you that are able to come see my museum, you'd welcome to be a guest on my show. You can come in, have a seat. We'll do an interview. I'll talk to you about things. If you have questions, you can ask them, or if you just want to chat about dinosaurs. You don't have to have a question for me. You can just chat. So I'll be doing that whenever I'm doing my traveling museum. If you go to my website, dinosaurgeorge.com, you can look at our calendar and you can see where we are. Also, if you will follow or like me on my Facebook page, the Dinosaur George Facebook page, I'm really thrilled. We have we have somebody now who is working with us to help us kind of maintain that site and keep it posted, up to date, and all that stuff. Michelle is incredibly good, and she's handling all the booking and all my lecture stuff, and then she's also kind of helping to oversee that page. So she's new with the company. She just started in June. So welcome to the company, Michelle. You're an incredible asset to this company, and I can't wait for the future to see how we grow this business. But anyway, so yeah, if you go to the Dinosaur George Facebook page or follow Dinosaur George 1 on Instagram or Dinosaur George on Twitter, all of my events will be posted there, and you can see where we're going to be. And if you happen to be in the area and would like to come in and be a part of the podcast, you'd be welcome to do so. Also, what am I thinking? Skype. Listen, if you will go to my Skype page, dinosaur.george, anyone that, if you ever see that I'm on Skype, you are welcome to call and ask a question or just talk about paleontology in general. Again, you don't have to have a question. You're welcome to just introduce yourself, tell us kind of what you like. If you have a special interest, if you call and you see that I'm on but I'm not answering, it could be because I'm answering somebody else's question. In the month of August, I'm going to try to be on Skype as often as I can, so that you can call in and interact and be a part of the show, because I'd love to have you as part of the show. Okay, in this particular episode, I'm going to interview a good friend of mine, Eric Warren. This is a guy that I met on Facebook several years ago, a long time ago. Eric is a good friend, and he has really gone through a lot of adversity, but he comes through it every time. And so he's an inspirational guy. He's an incredible artist. He's a paleo artist, and his artwork is remarkable. And so I really like his artwork a lot. Eric, I'm going to interview Eric, and it's going to be a lot of fun because he's a good friend, and I'm looking forward to it. And then after his interview, I'm going to get in and answer some of the questions that you all have submitted through the Ask Dinosaur George page. If you go to my website, dinosaurgeorge.com, click on the drop-down menu, look for the Ask Dinosaur George page, and you can submit a question. So there's a number of ways you can do it. You can submit your questions through Skype. You can leave a message if I don't answer or if I'm not on. You can be a part of the show through Skype, where I'll actually bring you onto the show through Skype and talk to you that way. Or if you can find where we're going to be, if we're going to be in your area with the traveling museum and you want to sit down and be a part of that, that would be a fun way to do it as well. So let's get into it. We'll take a little break, and then we're going to get right into my interview with Eric Warren, artist extraordinaire.
Bring Dinosaur George's traveling exhibit to your school, museum, or city. This is the largest exhibit of its kind in North America and will turn any facility into a natural history museum. You'll see things like prehistoric mammals, giant fish, ancient reptiles, and of course, dinosaurs. It's affordable, amazing, and will be an event you'll never forget. See complete details at dinosaurgeorge.com or call us toll-free, 888-487-7478. Bring Dinosaur George's Traveling Museum to your community today.
All right, we're back. You know, one of the greatest things about Facebook is that you get the opportunity to meet people that you may otherwise never get to meet. Well, I had the pleasure years ago, it's been a long time, that Eric and I became really good friends. And he's a remarkable artist, and I thought it'd be great for you guys to get the opportunity to sort of meet Eric the way I did. So, Eric, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking time to come talk to us, man.
How you doing, bud?
Doing great. It's so good, man. It's so cool to be able to we were just talking about technology, about how cool it is to sit here and, you know, you're in Rochester, right? You're in Rochester, New York?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, born and raised.
Yeah, sitting
Lived here all my life.
Yeah, so you're in Rochester and I'm in San Antonio. We're sitting having a chat. So tell us a little bit about you.
Man, I think most people that are, you know, going to listen to this probably know me on Facebook and stuff, the goofy artist and all that. I was born and raised here in Rochester. Most of my immediate family still lives here. I bopped around schools, elementary schools for most of the years. I don't think I ever lived anywhere more than 4 years at a time. It's well known that during high school I had a bit of a life change when I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So I kind of usually start life stories there. You know, that was 2 years of hell that I had to go through with that, and it makes you grow up a little bit. I ended up making it through that, and, you know, spending my senior year of high school mostly in art studio with my senior year art teacher, working towards scholarship there. My dream was to be a paleontologist, but my brain doesn't do the math and all that technical stuff very well, so I decided to go the route of art. And through that, over the years, it's also become a way to teach. Kids have always been something that I've been drawn to. I have a much younger brother, Patrick, who was adopted when I was in high school. And a lot of my friends have kids and working at the zoo, and I've always been drawn to it. So I've kind of directed my life that way. So, you know, I draw from, you know, coming from a family of divorce and fighting leukemia and moving around a lot, and, you know, life stories, some of which, you know, probably aren't appropriate because we all have those times in our lives.
Right.
But I try and draw from that, and then utilize all that to now in my job working at Monroe Two Bosse's. as a paraprofessional to help kids who have similar stories, whether it's trauma issues or, fighting illness, to kind of help them, be inspired that, life is good. It's challenging, but it's good.
Right. See, that's such an amazing thing, Eric, is that sometimes when people are faced with the adversity that you've been faced with, because you and we've talked over the years, and I know the things that you've dealt with, and it seems like every time the world deals a deck to you, deals you a hand, if the hand isn't good, so many of us fold, and we just say it's too much. And I've always respected you immensely as somebody that I've never seen a man go down and get back up as many times in my life. You should have been a professional football player, because no matter how many times you get tackled, you're going to get right back up and be back in the huddle. And I just want to say publicly how proud I am to call you friend, and how amazing it is to see you come back over and over and over again. And now you give your time to kids to help them, pick them up. And that's incredibly admirable. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. It's funny you mentioned football. That was my senior year of high school. We had to do a 10-piece concentration in AP Art in order to pass the class, and also to submit for college portfolios for admissions. And I had asked my teacher if I could do my concentration on dinosaurs, and he told me no. So I resorted and did on the Sports Illustration, which happened to be mostly football players.
Right.
Because I'd always wanted to play, but I broke my leg when I was really young going through all that, and I never got the chance.
Right.
But when you say, people get knocked down, and sometimes they just stay down, they don't get back up. I grew up in the 80s, so we all grew up watching those cheesy action flicks, but one character kind of always stuck with me, and that was the character of Rocky.
Yeah.
And it was, one of those things, life sucks. It's going to hit you. It's going to knock you down. But it's, you got to get back up. You're not always going to win.
Right.
And sometimes I think that the best champion is the person who's learned to lose first. If you don't learn how to take that loss and take that big hit, you're never going to be able to really rise up and really become something.
Right.
That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, but that's very
experience. That's
right. But it's a brilliant.
I've been through cancer and divorce and financial problems recently and all that. But you have a choice: either lay down and give up, or find a way to keep going.
Well, that's right.
Honestly, my job helps do that a lot. The kids really do. It's a lot. It's very inspiring to be able to help kids. Think of we both know Cam Muscally.
Yeah.
He's a big inspiration to me with all he's been through too, and I've known him since we've both known him for how many years now? Watched him.
Exactly.
Me, it's like I want to be able to try and do that. If that's my legacy, that I can help someone, then cool. I'm good with it.
Well, Cam, I interviewed Cam one time. I interviewed him. They were nice enough to let him out of jail to be interviewed. I'm kidding. God, I hope Cam hears this. That kid harasses me nonstop.
Sometimes with his stories that he's been through with his family and stuff, and fighting, autism like he is. Right. Sometimes it is kind of a little bit like being in jail.
Yeah.
I can relate to that.
Right.
He's a good kid though, man. He's
great. I love him.
Inspiration. I use him as an analogy quite often when I'm talking to my kids at work.
Right. Well, one of the things that stunned me when I met you was your artwork. Let me tell you something that I meet a lot of artists. There's just the world's filled with incredible artists. In fact, I see you're wearing the t-shirt drawn by Richard Bonk, who's a mutual friend of ours who, he's the nicest guy in the world. He's an incredible artist. One of the things that I was amazed, you mailed me this amazing Tyrannosaurus Rex picture right when we first met. We'd only known each other for months, and you just out of the kindness of your heart just mailed me. As a matter of fact, it's sitting in my office on my wall. That picture is there. I have a couple of stuff from you.
Colored pencil one?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep.
You seem to be one of the rare artists who captures motion. And that's hard to do. You can draw static pictures, but to bring the animal to life. So I want to talk a little bit about your artwork, and specifically your paleo artwork. When did you discover that you had a talent for art?
when I was a little kid, my parents divorced when I was in second grade, and I lived with my mom. I always kind of doodled pictures, but my parents weren't made of money and couldn't afford to buy me like the expensive Invicta dinosaurs,
right.
Or the Dino Riders and stuff all the time. And I wanted to be part of that little world. I wanted to have something to play with. I used to make my own. I used to take paper towel and masking tape, and my grandmother would yell at me because I'd waste it. And I would sculpt and make 3D dinosaur toys out of that. And I would buy, all the books I could for Christmas and whatever. And I would copy from artists like, John Civic and Gurchi and Mark Hallett. I think that the two back then that had the biggest impact on me were William Stout.
Yes.
Because even though his dinosaurs weren't always anatomically accurate, they had character.
Yes.
Every one of his illustrations was beautifully drawn and always had character. It always captured a moment. And sometimes they were amusing and funny. I remember a picture of his when I was a kid giggling over it because he drew a dinosaur pooping. But they always had that whimsical character that I was drawn to. And his style was so simple, but effective. And the other was Doug Henderson, who's an absolute master of graphite.
Oh, God, yeah.
And his dinosaurs were never the ones that were in your face with every scale detail. They were always part of an environment. And sometimes even the bugs or the little things and the plants were more important in the picture than the dinosaur was. But as a kid, not having access to things like paint and pastels and all the fancy art supplies, pencil was immediately accessible to me. All I needed was a 25-cent number 2 pencil and a piece of paper, and I could learn to draw. And today, still, graphite is my preferred medium.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the most versatile medium in so many ways among, when compared to others. And it's a lot of fun. And I owe a debt, to those two artists for inspired that, I try to emulate and do as best I can with graphite and push it as far as I can. But also when I do like the ink drawings, I sent you an Allosaurus years ago.
Yep.
And I step outside it has to be completely accurate thing. I want to have some fun with it.
Yes.
I want people to look at it and see something, maybe goofy or maybe exaggerate things. I think a lot of paleo artists forget that they're also creating art. If you look at wildlife art today, you'll see sculptures of giraffes with legs that are 3 times too long and too spindly, and they exaggerate anatomies and stuff, and it's beautiful art.
Right.
I sometimes try and do that with cartoon drawings of dinosaurs. Just exaggerate them a little bit, right. I want it to be accessible. I don't think that everybody has to be so rigid in their thinking, because honestly, even the best paleo art, we still don't know what these animals look like.
Absolutely.
All cavern bones. We don't know what kind of, what was the movement a couple years ago that Witten started, All Yesterdays, I think it was.
Yes.
Where they were endowing dinosaurs with weird, chicken combs and weird soft anatomies that are totally out of this world speculative,
right? But
totally plausible.
Right.
We'll never know.
Right.
So I think that that's okay, and that's what I try and do. I'll do the accurate stuff as best I can, and usually that ends up being in graphite because I don't touch on the colors too much like that. And then with my ink and colored pencil work, I try to be a little more pop art, a little more comic booky, and you try and tell a story. Right. You know what I mean? I want them to tell a story. Right. I mean, the biggest compliment you gave me once was it seemed like my dinosaurs always had character. Yes. And to me, that's huge because that's what I try and do. I don't see the point in always drawing a dinosaur sitting there right in front of you with every single scale, and that's great for a book that's trying to illustrate what an animal could have looked like. Right. But that's not my thing. That's not where I excel. I enjoy having more fun, and making a frameable piece of art that you hang in your room. Or like Bonk did on the T-shirt. It's it's totally cartoony. Sure. You can tweak the anatomy a million ways, but it's fun. And I think it when you can entertain somebody, it helps bring a little bit of awareness to a science that I think is often overlooked or seen as childish, and I don't think that's fair. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, I agree. I think I think paleo art in particular can serve two different purposes. Some can be educational, which the accuracy of the animal is important. And you have these artists that, like Sistani, who does unbelievable detailed research. And these guys are studying every muscle. That artwork is important that be accurate because that's educational artwork. But inspirational artwork can be something different. Sometimes I remember looking at that picture. What are they? They're two ceratosauruses fighting. I don't remember who did it, but one is laying on his back and the other ceratosaurus is leaping in the air, and it looks like they're fighting. And I think it was, oh my gosh, my mind just went blank. Charles R. Knight. I think Knight drew it. I think he drew it.
Are you talking about the Laylapse picture he did back in the 90s? Yes. Laylapse.
Right. Yep. That piece of art did more to inspire me to envision life than it did to teach me about Ceratosaurus. The dinosaurs were irrelevant. The musculature wasn't important. Even the texture of the skin wasn't important to me. What was important to me is that inspired me to want to, in my mind's eye, bring other things to life. So when I play with my toys were not static toys. They were moving. I could see them doing all this. That's inspired by artists. And that's what I like about your work. Your dinosaurs look like at any moment it'll turn its head slightly and look at me. Like something out of a Twilight Zone movie where you think you see a picture and then the next time you look at it, it's moved slightly. I swear to God, that's what I thought your Allosaurus was going to do. Because he looks like he's going to move. And not once did I ever sit there. I didn't count his fingers. I didn't count his toes. I didn't measure the distance between the tail and the body. I didn't measure the height of his hip to make sure it was scientifically accurate. Your artwork did what it was intended to do. It inspired and it excites me. And that's why I like your work.
There's a kid at school that calls me Dinosaur Guy because a friend of mine, Sean Warren, who does a similar thing to you do with a small traveling museum. He has a trailer that he brings casts around and everything.
Right.
And he lived, until this year, lived not too far away from me in New Hampshire. He loaned us a cast of the skull of what is now the nation's T-Rex. He loaned it to our school, and it sat in the science teacher's room, Stacy Webster, for a couple weeks. And I went in, and she was gracious enough to let me take over the class and then teach kids about the dinosaurs. And the kids, ask, well, why is it relevant? Why is it important? And to me, paleontology is one of those sciences, probably the only science that is the perfect gateway for kids. And sometimes teachers to be able to use it to teach math or history or any other subject, you can find an avenue of paleontology to bring all those other classes to life. And one of the reasons I enjoy paleontology so much is because it is the one science where art is essential.
Right.
If you didn't have the artists going back to Knight and Burian and Zallinger and Gregory Paul and Robert Bacher and, all those guys, they'd just be dusty bones in a museum.
Right.
They brought them to life. And we look back sometimes, and I still like drawing a retro dinosaur every once in a while, drawing a tail dragon T-Rex.
Right.
Because it's what I remember. It's what inspired me. And art to me is very important, and so is science and nature and wildlife and conservation and awareness of things like, climate change. And the marriage of those two, art and paleontology, together is the perfect way for me to be able to do both.
Right. Well, where can people see some of your work? Because you don't just draw dinosaurs. I mean, you do incredible animal artwork. Is there a place where the public could access and see some of your work?
I don't use it very much anymore, but it is active. There's a page on Facebook that's open called Eric's Arts, spelled a little weird, ERYKS, which was a name for a comic character I had years ago. And that has a bunch of photography, some vivarium build stuff I did, some wildlife, particularly frogs, and some of my other work outside of science stuff. I haven't used it a whole lot lately because the past couple of years, as you know, after I got divorced, have been a little bit rocky. So I haven't been as artistically productive outside of classrooms and trying to teach.
Right.
But that would probably be a way for people to look and see a little bit of everything I do, from Sports Illustration all the way through wildlife and all that.
Right. So spell that again so everybody knows where to look. It's on Facebook, you said, right?
Yep. ERYK apostrophe S Arts. ARTS.
ERYK apostrophe S Arts. Right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
Good. All right.
Yeah.
And then our signal looks like it's starting to croak. Hang on a minute. Hopefully we'll be back up. There we are. Okay. The last thing I want to talk to you about is your love of animals. Your love of animals and outdoors, because you draw some amazing animals. I remember seeing was it a red-eyed tree frog? I think you did a.
Yep.
Oh God, that thing is so real looking. It's so cool. Yep. So what? Tell us about your love of animals and why you think it's important that people learn about nature.
Most of my family group lives in the countryside, whether it's Watkins Glen or out in a suburb called Hamlin outside of Rochester. And I spent a ton of time as a kid in the creeks and ponds catching turtles and frogs and spiders. And I used to keep spiders in old glass peanut butter jars as pets, and turtles. It's just always something I've been interested in. And I grew up in the golden age of monster movies with, like Jaws or the movie Alligator with Robert Forster back in the 80s. And even though those movies, people always argue that they're horrible for giving animals a bad rep, to me, they kind of inspired me to go learn about those things.
Right.
And it's just something that I carried with me forever. I've always had either tarantulas or turtles or lizards or frogs as pets. And I ended up, John Adamski, one of the curators over at Seneca Park Zoo here, had come over to my house and seen the vivariums I built with orchids and waterfalls and everything, and asked me to come down. I ended up volunteering down there, helping them build a couple exhibits, poison dart frogs and one for the hellbenders, the mossy frogs. I just think that our natural world, without it, we're not here.
Right.
And I think especially where I live in the city, people are disconnected from it. And they go about their normal day watching sports and the news and getting their coffee and driving around their cars and going to bars and concerts. And that's all well and good, and that's great. But, your backyard, you got to take care of it. The environment, you got to take care of it. And people see things, the animals that I like, as the creepy ones, but they're probably the most important. You go to a zoo and the elephants are they're great, but those little guys, the little bugs and the frogs and other amphibians and reptiles, they're probably more important to the local ecosystems or ecosystems worldwide, than the big showy animals.
Right.
It's always been a passion of mine.
Well, you don't have to travel to the Amazon rainforest to observe nature. Like you said, when I was a kid, every day was spent turning over logs, turning over rocks, and once in a while you'd hit the mother lode. There'd be a salamander, or there'd be a toad, or a frog, and oh my God, I just thought it was so cool watching those things. And I think in this world of technology, you and I spoke before we started the interview. You and I were speaking about technology and the benefits of it, which is spectacular, but it's also sort of hindering people, young people especially, from learning about their environment. I think people would be more kind to each other if they learned to understand life. Because if you love a frog, it's easier to love your neighbor, even if your neighbor looks like a frog.
Right. One of my constant companions is my cat. I always post pictures of my cat, and it's not a wild animal. But if you can learn to love a cat or a dog or a frog or something like that, you're right. It's going to help you be able to appreciate everybody around you a little more.
Right.
I think especially right now in our country, we have a lot of issues with discrimination again, and it bothers me. And I think people need to step outside their box a little bit. Animals to me are extremely important. My backyard years ago, now it's, fallen into disarray a bit, but it was, I had it certified as a wildlife habitat. I had ponds back there with frogs. My neighbor has a koi pond. It was nice to sit in my backyard in the middle of the city and light a campfire and hear bullfrogs and birds and waterfalls.
Right.
And I felt like I was in the middle of a campground. You know, I tend to post a lot of pictures of places around here and animals, and I get responses from people all over the world about, oh my God, how beautiful New York is. Well, yeah, it is. Everybody thinks New York, and they think of New York City, they forget
Right.
about Finger Lakes or, you know, and I even have people around here that'll look and go, where were you? I didn't know that place existed. I'm like, how do you not?
Yeah.
You live here. How do you, it's 15 minutes away, you know, or a 2-hour drive. How do you not know this stuff is there? Get outside and go check it out.
Right.
You know, it's a little walk. You know, spend the day. You know, every spring I go when, you know, the toads come out and they start to breed. I remember in Boy Scouts going camping in the spring in the Finger Lakes and watching dozens of red efts, little orange salamanders, crossing the trails. You know, going out in the spring and finding little baby turtles that are like the size of $0.25, you know,
Right.
or $0.50. And with their big oversized heads, and they're like the cutest animal in the world. People are like, oh my God, they're so cute. I'm like, well, yeah, go look at them. You know, go check them out. Go get a pair of binoculars, you know.
Right.
Pay attention to, you know, to this stuff.
Right.
It's very important to me.
Very
You know,
much so.
I do a lot of talks with kids at school, and they're like, well, I want to go out and catch all these animals. And I'm like, no, just leave the wild ones where they are.
Right.
You know, there's reptile shows and stuff where you can get things from breeders. New York State, leave it alone. Anywhere, leave it alone.
Right.
You know, there's too much plundering and pilfering going on, and we don't need that.
Right. Exactly.
You
Well,
know?
Eric, how can people follow you? Are you accepting friends on Facebook still? Can they follow you on Facebook?
Yeah. I mean, I keep my Facebook page pretty open. I mean, sometimes I can be obnoxious.
Hey,
you know, or goofy.
welcome to the
But-
club.
I try not to cross certain lines. But yeah, I mean, you can follow me. I don't use my last name, you know, my Facebook account for my students by using my first and middle name, Eric Matthew.
Right.
That didn't work too well, so my students still found me. I don't mind if kids follow me, but, you know, to their parents' discretion, please. But yeah, I accept friend requests.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still, you know, it's fine.
Right.
Most photo albums and stuff, like I documented the whole trip with Karen and stuff here, and all that. And it's a public album that people can look at and just see a little bit about, you know, who I am, what I do, and, you know, where I live.
Right.
You know, I don't get to step outside of New York too often, but
Exactly.
it's,
Well, man, I tell you, Eric, I want to say how much I love your artwork. I would encourage
Thank you.
everybody to go check it out because it is incredible and it is very animated, very real. It's spectacular. And I also want to say how much I've enjoyed our friendship and how proud I am of you, of all the adversity you faced, and yet you still come through every time. You come through every time. And so you are a role model for anyone of any age dealing with any sort of issues because you certainly have weathered them all. So thank you so much, Eric, for being a friend and taking time to do this. And I appreciate it immensely.
I appreciate it too, George, man. It's been a lot of fun knowing you over the years and your generosity, your kindness. I mean, you and I have had conversations many times. None of us are perfect. We all make mistakes. But you got to own them. You got to try and just keep going forward and, you know, do the best you can. And hopefully the next time we have a conversation like this, it'll be in person. If I can get, you know, down your way or you get up here,
Absolutely.
you know, that would be a lot of fun, I think.
Yeah, it would. Well, Eric Warren, listen, it has been so great seeing you, talking to you, and thank you for taking the time. And the next time you have some new dinosaur art, please post it on my Facebook page, the Dinosaur George page, because
Absolutely.
people would love to see it.
Absolutely, my friend.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Have a good one.
All right, man. I sure enjoy my friendship with Eric. He's a great guy. And if you get a chance, you definitely want to see his work. He's an incredibly, incredibly talented artist. All right, let's jump into the Ask DG questions. This first one comes from Adam H. from Michigan. He says, hello, George. I messaged you many years ago during the Jurassic Fight Club show. Oh, that's cool. And now as a young adult and going to college for eventually paleontology. Hey, good for you, Adam. Good for you. He said, what would my best major be to start off with? Geology or biology or something else you recommend? Look forward to hearing from you. You've been a big inspiration to me from a small child to a young adult. Adam, thank you. That is incredibly kind of you. You have no idea how rewarding it is for me to get a chance to talk to people like you that I've known for a very long time. And I'm glad that I inspired you to do something. I would say that I would probably focus on geology first, because that's going to be one of the most important parts of your knowledge of paleontology. Biology obviously is important, but I would say I personally put geology above that, because it opens a lot more doors for you in the way of a career. Sometimes when you come out of college, you may not have a job waiting for you, and you've got to find something else to do. Well, the benefit of having geology first and having that as a good foundation for your education is that there's tremendous amounts of opportunity in the field of geology that ultimately will allow you then to step into paleontology. So that's just my personal opinion. Certainly, Adam, as you choose your college and as you choose your courses, there'll be people that can guide you in a better way. But just from my perspective, it is my opinion that geology is a stronger and a better way to begin your career on your road to becoming a paleontologist. And good luck to you with your future. I'm so glad to hear that you're taking that as a career choice, and I wish you the very best. And stay in touch with me and let me know how you're progressing. All right, Benjamin S. from Elizabeth, New Jersey. Hey, Dinosaur George, what is the difference between Therizinosaurus and Erlikosaurus? Erlikosaurus, man, I do not know the difference between the two. Erlikosaurus, however you pronounce it, Erica. They look to me to be the same animal. I mean, I've never had the opportunity to ever look closely at any of the papers on either one, so I cannot tell you if the differences are minor or if they're major. Certainly from appearances, it looks like they're absolutely very closely related, and I would assume that they're both therizinosaurs. I can't imagine they're not. But as for what makes them different, Benjamin, I just don't know. I apologize, but I just don't know what would be the difference between the two. But again, from the outside, they look pretty close to me. But, that happens as well with some of the theropods. I mean, you look at some of the theropod dinosaurs and outwardly, they all look very similar. It's not until you get in and look at their dentition, their teeth, and you look at all of the intricacies of the skeleton that you finally realize they're two different animals. So mine is just an opinion based solely on the exterior part. All right. Dino Geek from Calcutta, India, my friend Dino Geek. He says, greetings, Mr. Blasting. It's me again. First of all, my friend Dino Geek, I always appreciate all of the courtesy that you always show me, because you always show me this courtesy. But you don't need to call me Mr. You're welcome to call me George, DG, Dinosaur George, whatever you prefer. But I want you to know how impressed I am at all of you for being so courteous all the time. But you guys don't need to. You don't need to worry about referring to me as Mr. And again, I grew up in the country here in Texas, and it's hard for me to call people by their first name, even though they tell me to do it. Like my teachers, I'm 57 or 58 years old, and I still cannot call one of my teachers by his or her first name. I can't do it. And I can't call my aunts and uncles by their first name. It's just, it's just what I do. So I understand that. So, okay, to his question, it is me again. I would like to know if the specimen labeled MSNM V4047 really is a Spinosaurus. If not, then the 50-foot estimate for Spinosaurus will not be valid, making it a lot smaller than estimated. Have a nice and safe day. Thank you, my friend Dino Geek. And to you and your family, I hope you all are doing well. Okay, the numbers and letters that I just read off, for some of you young listeners, dinosaurs are given names like serial numbers. Think of it as a serial number or an ID number. Yes, you can refer to dinosaurs by their common name, like we call Sue, Sue. We call Stan, Stan. But they have identifying numbers that help paleontologists understand what the specimen is or who the specimen is. The one that my friend Dino Geek is saying is that this one, the one labeled MSNM V4047, it is a very large, it's the end of the nose, the rostrum, the snout of what appears to be a giant Spinosaurus, and it's big. And so the question is that really Spinosaurus or is it something else? Because if it's something else, then do we really know how big Spinosaurus itself is? Okay, my understanding is that a year or so ago, I believe they have now attributed that animal to a different species. I think. I'm almost sure. I think they did. So therefore, if indeed it is a different species, if it's not Spinosaurus and it's something else, well then, who then would be next in line to be the verifiable Spinosaurus, and how big would it be? That's basically his point. Because if this big monster that if they're basing the size of Spinosaurus off of this big one, and it's not Spinosaurus, then how big is Spinosaurus? Now, I don't know the latest, Paul Sereno and his crew, I think, found a really good Spinosaurus again, one that's kind of changed the way we view Spinosaurus, but I don't know how big that one is. So how big is Spinosaurus at this particular point in time? I cannot tell you because I just don't know. I just don't know what the accurate size estimates would be. Dino Geek, I hope everything is well in India. I would love to visit your country one day. Maybe when I do, you'll be my private tour guide. All right, Ken from Cowpens, South Carolina. Hey, DG, love your podcast and videos. Thank you very much, Ken. That's very kind of you. His question is there any evidence of venomous dinosaurs? I had this question several years ago, and it intrigues me tremendously. It's exciting. Look, there's no doubt that dinosaurs have reptilian qualities, and why wouldn't they have evolved or carried over venom as something that they have? If I remember correctly, my friend Dr. Larry Martin, who is unfortunately no longer with us anymore, I miss Dr. Martin, he had at one time proposed the idea of a venomous dinosaur, and I think it was Sinosauropteryx. Is that right? No, Sinonithosaurus. I think it was Sinonithosaurus, where he proposed that they found in the jaw some spongy-like material where he thought venom would have stayed, and then as the animal bit, the venom would run down the teeth, sort of like a Komodo dragon, sort of like a beaded lizard, the Gila monster, sort of like those guys, because they don't have hollow teeth. Like snakes, they have teeth where the venom would run down the tooth and then be chewed into the wound. So he proposed that, but I believe that was, I think that the paleo community disagreed with that, and I don't think that ever was proposed any further. I believe it was a dead end, I think. But one of the difficulties about dinosaurs, of course, is that there's limited soft tissue that's ever preserved. And if indeed they have some sort of venom sac, it wouldn't be preserved. Now, certainly there would be places within the jaw where you think it would have been, so there should be a hollow spot. And to this day, I'm unsure if any of that has been found. But I would say that back when I was young and people were saying, we think there's feathered dinosaurs, people my age were going, that's absurd, that's not possible. So today I'm saying, I think we're going to find venomous dinosaurs, and you may say that's absurd, that's impossible, but keep in mind with new technology and new discoveries, things change all the time. But Ken, I am a firm believer that, there would have been some sort of venomous animal. How cool would it be if mosasaurs were venomous? Ooh, boy, I'd sure like to bring back some of my mosasaur experts and pose that question. That would be cool. All right. Anyway, Ken, good to hear from you. Thank you so much for taking the time to write. Ethan from Canada, beautiful Canada. Ethan, I'm so disappointed. This is going to be the first year in a long time that I'm not going to be able to make my annual trip to Canada. I always fly into Edmonton and then I spend a couple of days speaking out at Jurassic Forest, which is one of my all-time favorite dinosaur-themed amusement area or parks. And it's my favorite place to go. If any of you live up in that area or are visiting that area, you've got to go to Jurassic Forest. A shout out to my good friends up there and my family, who I call my family, Greg and the Imp NATO and Scream Soda. Yes, those are my names. Those are my names for him. Greg is a real name. I've never come up with a good nickname for Greg. But anyway, so Ethan, I'd love to come up there and see you guys. So Ethan's question is, hi, Dinosaur George. I was recently watching your show, Jurassic Fight Club, specifically the episode that talks about Nanotyrannus and how it's distinct from T-Rex. However, I believe now that many paleontologists in the present day agree that Nanotyrannus was simply a juvenile T-Rex. So is Nanotyrannus truly valid or no? Well, Ethan, great question. At the time of the filming of that show, back when we were filming Jurassic Fight Club, I was 99.5% certain that Nanotyrannus was its own species, that it was its own dinosaur, that it was not some sort of juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex, because I believed, based on what I was seeing and reading, I believed that the evidence leaned towards it being its own species. Now, I know over the years I've read and seen a lot of different reports and a lot of different comments, and it does seem that more and more paleontologists are taking the side of it being a juvenile. But I don't have access to all the things they have access to. So what's new, what's been discovered, I just don't know. So I can't say that I know with any certainty what the whether or not it is its own species. But I do know this, and I will acknowledge this. It sounds like maybe the evidence is leaning now towards that, to where more and more people are starting to come to the realization that these things are probably juvenile T-Rexes. I don't know. I won't. I used to say I stood on the side of it's its own species, but now with all the new comments that I've read, I'm leaning more towards thinking that perhaps I need to rethink it, and that it may be its own. It may be a juvenile Tyrannosaurus Rex. All right, Jeffrey in Fremont, California. Hey, Dinosaur George, how social was Parasaurolophus? Oh, what a cool question, man. How social was Parasaurolophus? Okay, there's 2 ways to look at it, 3 ways to look at it, or 5 ways. I'll figure it out in a minute. First of all, based on evidence, it does appear like hadrosaurs were very social animals. Hadrosaurs appeared to travel in groups. They appeared to live in herds, and it would make sense to do that. So because Parasaurolophus is a hadrosaur, you could, of course, imply that he follows those same things. But that's not always the case. You can't always do that. Animals within groups, not all members of those families are social. For instance, if you go to Africa, you notice some antelope live in huge herds, some gazelles live in huge herds, but then some others prefer a solitary life. So there's always exceptions to that. But with Parasaurolophus, you look at that head crest, and if it is indeed one for communication, then I would question whether having something that large would be necessary if you're living in a large group. And do you need a megaphone to hang out in a group? Or do you need a megaphone to speak over long distances to find others of your kind? Maybe they're not as big a social group as other hadrosaurs. I don't know. That's something to think about. Do you need that great big headgear if you're just going to be talking to the kid next to you? Or do you need that long distance communication that when you want to find others of your own kind, it's available to you? Maybe you hang around by yourself. I don't know. Maybe the males were more solitary, and maybe that's the reason for the big head crest. Maybe they're cruising around looking for a girlfriend or looking to pick a fight. And so maybe that's why. But Jeffrey, that's a very interesting question. And I am unaware of any Parasaurolophus material where multiple animals were found together. If I'm wrong, please correct me, and go to my website, dinosaurgeorge.com, and click on the podcast page and leave your comments there. If I'm wrong, I'd be interested. I'd be interested in everybody's opinion anyway. I kind of like reading your opinions, and I enjoy it. Okay, let's see. Let me see. I'm just buzzing through these real quick. Let's see. Okay, this one is from Miss Cake Pants Art. What a great name. Miss Cake Pants Art says, hi, DG. I didn't put my real name because I have a YouTube channel and I don't want people finding out my real name. Well, Miss Cake Pants Art, listen, if I can ever promote your YouTube channel, don't hesitate. I mean, I understand your feeling for wanting to keep your private information private. So Miss Cake Pants Art from America. Okay, let's see. My question is, if an ankylosaurus had its tail club broken, would it still be able to defend itself? I think so, because it has the spikes on the back and the head. I would love to know your thoughts. Kindly, Cake. Well, Cake, that's what I'm going to call you. Cake, that's a very, very good question. That's a very good question. Would the tail club mend? First of all, almost all broken bones will ultimately mend. And so if it broke its tail club, would that mend? See, it seems to be encased in a really heavy, thick layer of keratin. So it's not like it would shatter and break, I don't think. So I think it would ultimately heal and maybe even be worse, because now when a bone breaks, a lot of times what happens is you get this odd growth that grows all over the bone, and it adds sort of a big clumpy, it looks like cauliflower almost. So maybe a broken tail club becomes an even more vicious weapon once it heals. But let's say, to your point, that it's broken. Can it defend itself? Let's say it broke it in battle, and now is it functional? It can't swing it anymore because of perhaps the pain of the break. So could it? Well, there's two forms of defense. There is aggressive defense, and there's huddle down, hunker down, and let your shell do the work for you defense, like a turtle. Turtle will just pull up inside of his shell and good luck to you. Now, of course, ankylosaurs can't do that. They can't pull their arms and head inside of that shell, but they're still very heavily armored. And they absolutely had the ability to protect and defend themselves because of the array of weaponry attached to the body. So not only do you have the shell and the spikes and all the other things, but you've also got a mouth, and it's got a flat beak. It doesn't seem like it could do much damage, but hey, man, I got bit by a turtle once when I was a kid, and I never forgot it. That hurt like crazy. And this was a box turtle. He didn't have some razor sharp beak like a snapping turtle. This was a little box turtle. Little dude clamped down and wouldn't let go. I think I was more freaked than pain, but nonetheless, that's a potential weapon. And of course, if he knocks you down and he steps on you, that's a tremendous amount of weight that's going to crush you. So, Cake, I do think it's a brilliant question, and I do believe that they would be able to in some degree. All right, let me try one more. Let's see. Okay, let's see. This is from Rex in Waco, Texas. Rex says, so back to the lips on a Tyrannosaurus Rex. If it did have lips like a reptile, would the upper lips cover the bone-crushing side teeth, or would they stick out like the Jurassic Park Tyrannosaurus Rex design? You, along with David Hone and Bob Bacher, inspired me to accomplish paleontology, and now I'm a paleontologist for Paleotex LLC, located in Hillsboro, Texas, a museum called Texas Through Time. Thank you so much for your videos. I learned a lot from you. Wow, Rex, congratulations. You know what? I absolutely want to go to that museum in Hillsboro. A good friend of mine owns it. And Texas Through Time, man, I definitely want to stop there and go visit, and I'd love to meet you in person. And thank you so much for saying that I helped inspire you. But I'll tell you this, David Hone and Bob Bacher are two exceptional people to be inspired by. And you certainly picked two very, very good people. If you've ever listened to my podcast with David Hone, I had a chance to interview him, and he is absolutely incredible. So anyway, so if it does have lips that cover the teeth, there is no way, in my opinion, that those big bone crushers could have lips low enough to cover them. They're going to hang out of its mouth regardless. You're going to see the tips of those, no matter what the lip configuration is. And for those of you who may not know what we're talking about, there's some debate as to whether or not tyrannosaurs or any dinosaurs had lips, or did they just have that fleshy thing that stopped. So when you looked at a T-Rex, did you see 90% of his teeth, or did you only see the very ends of the longest teeth? That's a debate. So in my opinion, no matter whether they had the lips or not, those big teeth would have been visible regardless. All right, listen, you guys, I really appreciate all of you taking the time to write to me. I hope that you enjoyed hearing from me again. I plan on doing a lot of these. Remember, go to my Skype page, Dinosaur.George. If you see that I'm on, just call me. Now, listen, if I don't answer when you call, that could mean I'm interviewing somebody else or taking somebody else's call. So just keep trying back, and you could always leave me a message. Please follow me on Facebook and Twitter. You'll see the links on my podcast page. Visit my online catalog if you're interested. That's at dinosaurgeorge.com. And until next time, I hope everybody takes care. And I suspect I'm going to be putting out 3 or 4 of these podcasts over the next 3 or 4 days. So look and listen, and you'll hear it. And I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you all so very much for calling and writing and taking the time to contact me. I will talk to you all soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the Dinosaur George Show. Please follow us on our social media links and join our mailing list. If you're interested in having Dinosaur George speak at your event, please visit our website at dinosaur